Welcome. Today audit of banks becomes the easiest for us. Let's see. Banking sector is essential for economic growth and stability. Banks control money supply in the economy through interest rates, thus ensuring stability. They take money from people who have excess funds and they lend it out to borrowers who will further invest it, thus fueling economic growth. They deal with large amounts of public money, so any threat to their reputation will be disastrous for their business. So they need to manage their risks relating to reputation. They require financial information to be reliable and thus quality audits come into play. Thus independent bank audits are crucial to maintain a healthy and safe banking system. Peculiarities. How are they different from other businesses? They operate across vast geographical areas. The range of products and services that they offer is diverse. The transactions that they engage in is high in volume and complex. The reliance on technology is heavy and the strict regulatory oversight by the regulator, which is RBI. So we can remember it easily by diverse areas, diverse products, complex transactions, technology dependence, and regulatory oversight. Diverse areas, diverse products, complex transactions, technology dependence, and regulatory oversight. Banking operations, they are conducted solely at physical branches, while other offices play a support system role. They provide control and administrative support. They establish policies to ensure compliance with best practices. They establish policies, systems, and internal control to ensure compliance with regulations, accounting standards, and best practices. They delegate authority, set responsibility, and monitor branch activity. Types of banks in India. Commercial banks. These are the most common, most widespread which we see around. They offer various banking products and services such as accepting deposits or granting loans or investment opportunities, etc. And these payment banks, which is a new addition, they are recently introduced. They offer restricted deposits up to a certain amount and banking services such as current and savings account. But they cannot issue loans or credit cards. So they can be thought of as commercial banks light. And then there is development banks, which provide funds for infrastructure projects. So they can be thought of as commercial banks pro. They are also called term lending institutions because they provide long-term loans. And there is regional rural banks, which focus on rural areas and basic banking needs. So these two can be clubbed together as rural banks. They are small finance banks which offer basic banking services to unserved or unorganized sectors. So what's the difference between these two if you ask? It focuses on rural areas, but it focuses on rural population, the unserved population, the unorganized population. It can be based in urban areas too. But for remembering purposes, we will club this together. And cooperative banks, which can be thought of as a mix between urban banks and rural banks, because they function like commercial banks, but they cater to agricultural and rural sectors. And being a cooperative bank, they operate on cooperative principles. Then we study about our regulator, RBI, Reserve Bank of India. As we all know, is the Central Bank of India. It regulates the banking industry. No bank can operate without an RBI license. What are the responsibilities? The responsibilities again can be clubbed into two groups. The first one is central level functions and the second one is related to banks. It sets monetary and credit policies with the government which affect interest rates in the country. They issue currency notes. They act as a banker to the banker, as we used to say. It acts as a banker to the central government, state government, and other banks. So these three were central functions. Then it regulates commercial and other banks. It supervises financial institutions, both banks and non-banks, and it inspects banks, that whether they adhere to the regulations or not. Regulatory framework. Banks are governed by a variety of laws, such as the first one, see RBI Act. Our regulator was born in 1934. This act empowers RBI to issue directives to the banks. Then we were born, the banks were born. That's the main legislation which guides us. It deals with capital requirements, licensing, etc. Soon after us, our younger brother SBI Act was born in 1955. Then banks were nationalized in 1970 and 80 during the Indira Gandhi times. So this act was born, Banking Companies Acquisition and Transfer of Undertakings Acts. Then under the same government, Garibi Hatao Yojana was there, which focused on rural areas. So Regional Rural Banks Act was formed in 1976. Then came the age of IT. So IT Act came in 2000. And with the advent of IT, money laundering potential improved. So Prevention of Money Laundering Act had to come in 2002. Then as the money laundering potential stopped, people defaulted on their dues. So Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Assets and Enforcement of Securities Interest Act. came in 2002, also called SARFAESI Act. Let's understand the name. Securitization. It means converting loans into tradable securities such as shares. So loans can be sold then. So this act facilitates this conversion process, allowing banks to sell bad loans to other institutions. Financial assets in this case means the loans that banks give. Here it focuses on those loans that are in default. Reconstruction of financial assets. Reconstruction means revival or restructuring the debt. So this act provides for managing bad loans in an attempt to recover them. Enforcement of security interest means when a borrower takes a loan, they often keep some security such as property. So this act grants banks the authority to enforce their claim on this security if the loan is not repaid. They can auction the property. So banks can collect their dues in such cases. So when money laundering potential stopped, people started defaulting. So SARFAESI Act came to enable banks to recover their dues. Then credit cards came. So credit information companies started forming. So Credit Information Companies Regulation Act came in 2005. These companies maintain credit information of individuals and companies. This enables banks to assess credit worthiness of the borrowers so that they can grant better loan terms based on their credit history. Then electronic payments started booming. So Payment and Settlement Systems Act came in 2007 to ensure secure and efficient electronic money transfer such as NEFT, RTGS. Then Companies Act, our dear Companies Act came in 2013. So our regulator born in 1934, RBI Act. Then we were born in 1949, Banking Regulation Act. Our younger bro was born 1955, SBI Act. In 1970s and 80s, during the Indira Gandhi times, banks were nationalized. So banking companies, acquisition and transfer of undertakings acts. Then under the same government, Garibi Hatao Yojana, 1976, RRB Act. IT age came, 2000, IT Act. IT came, money laundering potential improved. Government had to stop it. So Prevention of Money Laundering Act, 2002. People started defaulting. So SARFAESI Act came in 2002. Credit cards came. So CIC Regulation Act, Credit Information Companies Regulation Act came in 2005. Electronic payments started happening in 2007. Payment and Settlement Systems Act came. And at last, our dear Companies Act 2013 came into force. Form and content of financial statements. It's dealt by Section 29, Banking Regulation Act 1949. Same as the Companies Act, it's dealt in third schedule. So we have to prepare the financial statements as per the Act's third schedule or as close thereto as possible. But the third schedule relates to Banking Regulation Act, not Companies Act. So Form A specifies the balance sheet format and Form B specifies the P&L account format. Disclosure requirement is the same as accounting standard as specified by Section 133 of the Companies Act 2013, read with Rule 7 of the Companies Accounts Rules 2014. Not required. If we know, it's better. If we don't know, it's okay. So disclosure requirements is as per accounting standards or those issued by the ICI. Those standards issued by the ICI. Audit of accounts dealt with in Section 30. A qualified auditor will audit the bank accounts. Auditor eligibility, qualification, disqualification is same as per the company auditor requirements. The appointment of auditor, it's important. Banking companies, after all, it's a company, so it's the same appointment at the AGM by the shareholders. But here RBI's approval will be needed. And same in nationalized banks, appointed by the bank's board, but subject to RBI approval. Bank's board will appoint it. Here shareholders will appoint it at AGM. And RRB, appointed by the bank itself. As the bank itself is appointing, it requires more vigilance. So CG's approval is needed in case of RRB banks. Auditor remuneration for banking companies, it's the same as it's a company determined as per Companies Act Section 142, according to which it's decided in a general meeting or as determined by the company. Or in nationalized banks and SBIs, it's set by the RBI in consultation with the central government. Auditor powers are the same as in Companies Act, which have the same access rights as company auditors regarding books, accounts, or documents or vouchers. Reports by SCAs. There are two auditors, SCA, Statutory Central Auditor, and Statutory Branch Auditor. It's clear by their names also. They audit branches, they audit at the central level. So Statutory Central Auditors issue these reports in addition to the main reports. So main reports go to the central government. So RBI says, what's the use of me being the regulator if I have no say in this? I'm not even getting the main report. So the ego got hurt. So it says, okay, you do whatever with the main report. We want a more detailed report, even a longer report than the main report. So long form audit report is submitted to the RBI. Then there are various compliance reports. Compliance with SLR requirements. SLR banks have to maintain some liquid assets with them. So statutory liquidity ratio requirements, whether the bank complies with it. Whether the bank complies with treasury operations as instructed by RBI. RBI guidelines for income recognition on how to recognize incomes for banks specified by RBI. How to classify assets, we will study further. And how to create provisions on those assets. So have those guidelines been complied with? And then there are committee recommendations. Ghosh committee recommendations on frauds and Jilani committee recommendations on internal controls. So whether the bank has complied with these committee recommendations. Then there are two related to advisories. First one is report on any serious irregularity which require immediate attention. And the second one is report on instances of adverse credit deposit ratios in rural areas. Adverse credit deposit ratios indicate that the bank is lending out less than it's collecting in deposits, which means it's staying away from lending out to people, which will limit investment and economic growth in rural areas. And there is report on operating effectiveness and adequacy of internal controls over financial reporting, which is required as per Companies Act, Section 143(3)(1). Auditors report for nationalized banks and SBIs. The auditor reports to the central government stating whether the FS give a true and fair view, whether they accurately reflect the bank's condition, whether they are prepared correctly, if branch auditor reports were adequate for the overall audit. So whether the FS were prepared accurately and whether the branch audit reports were adequate for the overall audit. If the bank's transactions were within its powers, they were intra-wires, they didn't exceed their authorization, and whether the requested explanations or information were provided and whether they were satisfactory, and any other significant issues for the government's attention. So reports on matters dealing with accuracy of the financial statements, whether they give a true and fair view, and adequacy of the branch audit reports, whether they were adequate for the overall audit, whether the bank's transactions were intra-wires, were within its powers, and whether they provided satisfactory requested explanations, and any other significant issues which require government's attention. Report format is the same as we studied in Chapter 8 and Companies Act 2013 as required by Section 143. CARO isn't applicable to banks. Plus, we have to disclose unaudited branches and quantify amounts for advances, deposits, interest income and expense for unaudited branches. Then long form audit report. Auditors of all the banks, public sector banks, private sector banks or foreign banks, including branches, must submit long form audit report along with statutory audit report. It's an additional report. The matters that are to be addressed is specified by the RBI. It has to be submitted by June 30th each year by SCS, Statutory Central Auditors. So you should properly plan to complete it on time. Optional executive summary can be given to highlight key observations. Then there is a RBI circular which says all auditors, internal, external or institutional, of all scheduled commercial banks, excluding RRBs, are required to report any suspicion of fraud, unauthorized actions or irregularities in bank transactions, which means any foul play, to both the bank's management and the Reserve Bank. This reporting is mandatory and overrides confidentiality obligations as discussed in Asset 250. Failure to report on these matters will lead to legal liability for the auditors. So this circular gets very harsh on auditors. But note, here the auditor's responsibility in detecting fraud is limited to obtaining reasonable assurance that whether the FS are free from material misstatement, whether caused by fraud or error, as discussed in Asset 240. So Asset 240 comes into rescue, saying auditors are not expected to look into each and every transaction, but to evaluate the system as a whole. So let's recap. Report by SCS, in addition to main report, 5 reports. First one, LFAR to RBI. Second, compliance reports. First one is SLR requirements, treasury operations, income and asset, committee recommendations. Ghosh committee for fraud, Jilani committee for internal controls. Report on serious irregularity or adverse credit deposit ratios. Then report on internal controls over financial reporting. For nationalized banks and SBIs, auditors report to the central government, stating whether the FS accurately reflect the bank's condition, whether the branch audit reports were adequate, whether the transactions were within its powers, if requested explanations were satisfactory, any other significant issues. Report format same as per Chapter 8 and Matters are to be addressed as per Section 143 of the Companies Act. CARO isn't applicable, and we have to disclose for unaudited branches amounts for advances, deposits, interest, income, and expense. Long form audit report. Matters are to be specified by RBI, have to be submitted by June 30th, applicable on all banks, including branches, along with statutory audit report. Optional summary can be provided. RBI circular requires all the auditors of all scheduled commercial banks, excluding RRBs, to report on any suspicion of fraud, unauthorized transaction, or irregularity to both the bank's management and the RBI. Mandatory requirement, otherwise will lead to legal liability for the auditors. But as 240 states, the auditor's responsibility is limited to obtaining reasonable assurance. So he is not expected to look into each and every transaction, but to evaluate the system as a whole.